Hello and welcome. My name is Spencer Fowler and I'm the CEO and Superintendent of the Affiliated High School of Peking University. We're housed in beautiful Beijing, China, and also in Haikou, Hainan, China. What's really special about our school is the fact that our students and our faculty are co-creating a curriculum, an experience, an opportunity for teaching and learning to take a different form and a different shape, with the purpose of trying to advance the world and better the lives of other people. When you really open up the hood to this organization, you see students and faculty and outside people and outside resources coming together with the purpose of trying to tackle real-world issues. And what I've learned since joining this school is that students and teachers are capable. They're capable of changing and advancing the world unlike anything I'd ever seen before in my life. I've seen miracles happen in this organization because there's the passion, there's the interest, and there's the goal and purpose to extend knowledge and skills beyond the walls of this organization to other people outside who need and should be benefiting from them being here with the resources at our fingertips. One of the most special project that I've seen evolve in this school is this initiative around supporting those disadvantaged in the Middle East. And why is this so special and so unique? Because I've seen so many people within and outside of this organization through a PBL framework, a PBL lens and vehicle, if you will, to contribute to its success. And I've seen that many different PBL projects have had to be initiated in order to support the overall success of such an endeavor. It was something that was brought to my attention through students who participated in a course that wanted to do something more than just write an academic paper to educate the larger world on the growing refugee crisis. This idea, if you will, this project, if you will, that was going to bring a refugee, someone who was disadvantaged in the Middle East, to come to our campus in Beijing. We were able to realize this initiative through many people doing their own PBL projects to get this first individual out of the refugee camps in Jordan, out of Jordan into China, into our school, to be successful into our school, and now having a very successful higher ed career with Northwestern in Qatar. We then had a different student come the following year, and this project has been evolving with the different people, the key members, and those that are associated and connected to this initiative. The COVID crisis, when it broke, really set us back because then we could no longer bring or keep these students on our campus in Beijing, which challenged us to really look at this project to think, how can we think in real time to evolve so that we don't lose something that's so beautiful and special to us? And what came about was that since we were forced into this virtual and hybrid situation, this context, how could we maintain that kind of posture to serve even more students than one Access Scholarship would allow per year? And so what's evolved, basically at the behest of the students, the creativity of the students, was that we need to figure out how we can serve more students. And we can do that in a virtual context. We can't offer the same kind of curriculum and program that we could in the face-to-face. And so what's evolved has been this project, or many projects, where students are volunteering to teach and to coach, to befriend, to be this network ecosystem for those who are marginalized youth, disadvantaged, and have very little hope in the Middle East, specifically in Jordan, to help them with their academic endeavors, to help them to be connected to the world outside of the refugee camps, so that they too then can contribute to this growing idea of shared projects where other people's lives can be changed and to benefit.
Hi everyone, my name is Aileen Lee and I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at the Affiliate High School of Peking University's Education Group. I'm so excited to be here talking about the initiative and watching how the initiative has grown in the few years. I've watched the students talk about the amazing course known as the Introduction to the Refugee Crisis. I talk about it all the time, especially when universities are visiting us. And I've watched the students come back from Jordan with wonderful stories and once-in-a-lifetime experiences that they could not have gained anywhere else. Faculty members and students tell me about the relationships that they've built. And personally, I've been on the same trip and have done the same. These connections that you make with people are unforgettable. Personally, when I got to go to Jordan and be involved with the admissions process, I really learned so much throughout the selection process. And I got to come back and share it with a lot of people around the world, the international educators and students. I've seen our refugee student scholarship recipient also attend different schools and share his own experiences and how valuable this opportunity is. I've watched the initiative grow, but more importantly, I've watched all of us grow, our students, our teachers, our administration, and the entire community. We went through highs and lows, and now we know how the cycle goes since we've been through it a few times. So that was the first 2 years, and now we're here, and again, continuing the growth and the development by having more students become involved. Now they're becoming tutors, and a long-term commitment to what we're doing. And just most recently, we've received an opportunity grant from the International Association for College Admissions Counseling, also known as International ACAC. So the association is now providing funding for us to purchase devices, and so that we can have these electronic devices placed at the refugee center so that refugees can borrow these devices to prepare for the university entrance exam known as the Taujihi. So while they're borrowing these devices and using these devices, we also have our students who will be tutoring them virtually. And it's amazing to see how this initiative, started from something that wasn't electronic, but taking advantage of the pandemic. And now we're able to access more refugees, more students, and we're getting more of our community to help out in the sense and through virtual learning. So I want to thank you everyone who has helped and become such a big part of this, and we want to continue to seek ways for us to do more, whether it's helping other institutions and other schools and getting support. Because again, now that we can see that it started from a class to our entire school, and then helping a refugee center or one student. Now that we're helping an entire refugee center, and then having the International Association for College Admissions Counseling help us, we could just see that we can get more involvement in how we want it to grow.
Hi, I'm Yao Lan, a student from the affiliated high school of Peking University, Dalton Academy. I took classes on refugee issues for 2 semesters and attended experiential learning trip. I went to Jordan in November 2019 with my classmates and teachers, where I visited refugee camps, refugee schools, and UN refugee agencies. I wanted to share my experience in refugee schools at first. Those schools are surrounded with fences. In my view, it's more likely to be a cage or a prison instead of a school where students receive education. It's hardly to imagine how those students could study in such environment. We received warm hospitality in both schools. When we stepped in the schools, all students from different grades just came out of the classroom and they surrounded us. They appeared to be real excitement. I guess we might be the only real alive foreigners that they've ever met in their lives. It reflects the lack of care that the world has on them. But I'm glad that we were there, representing the rest of the world and telling them that people from other parts of the world care about them. And we gave presentations to introduce the scholarship program provided by our school. And after each presentation, we have time to communicate with them and answer the questions. In one school in Palestinian camp, I met a high school student. She came there with her mom and her little brother together, because they really value this opportunity, and they keep asking me questions to know more about the program. Her mom asked me that, "You only received one student in Jordan?" I said, "I'm sorry, we're only capable to receive one student." Then she asked, "Only one?" And I replied, "Sorry, but yes." And she asked again, "In whole Jordan?" And I said yes. Then she became silent. After a few seconds, she signed and asked me, or more likely, she's nearly begging me, "Could you please receive more than one student in Jordan?" At that time, I just don't know how to answer her question. I wanted to help every of them, I really do, but I don't have the capacity, neither do our school. We're trying to do our best, while still, most of the refugees are in desperation. I feel hopelessness for them. All those refugees want to receive a proper education, but they just cannot. By communicating with refugees in a refugee center, I know that most of them can only attend half-day school because there are too many students, but only limited amount of teachers and space. And other obstacles, including teachers' accent or lack of money to pay the tuition fees, are also preventing them to receive proper education. And our program is one of the very few chances that they've ever had in their lives to make a difference in their lives. Though with little hope, they all tried their best. At that time, I came to realize what we're thinking about every day is how to earn a better life, or how to enjoy our life better. But what they are considering about is how to earn a life. On the last day that we went to a refugee center, we gathered with refugees from different countries, including Somalia, Yemen, and Syria. They each bring something that they think represents their own countries, and we also bring something that we think are meaningful and important to us. Then we use linen, silk, glue, and things that are brought here to make a map of Jordan's border. I don't know how to express my feeling at that time, but I feel like we're building connections between us, between people from different parts of the world, but in Jordan, not a hometown for any of us. I'm not sure if we did help all of them, but hopefully, we, on behalf of the rest of the world, have brought something valuable for them, as those valuable things they brought to each of us. As for how this experiential learning trip has helped me, it actually breaks prejudice and stereotype that I hold and people around me have held on Middle East, both the region and the people there. Before I went to Jordan, lots of my friends asked me that, "Are not you afraid? You know, Middle East is full of wars and chaos. People there are all violent. Why would you choose to go there?" Honestly, I was also a bit nervous and worried before I went there, but as soon as I arrived Jordan, all those worries just disappeared. Because really getting in touch with local people, I would say they're really friendly, and even more friendly than some people that I met in my country. They're all enthusiastic and are willing to share their experience with us. Prejudice develops easily when you know a little about something, and it can be hardly reduced unless you experience something yourself. And that's one of the most important lessons that this experience has brought me. And I think that is also one of the important lessons, that's why experiential learning trip is necessary and valuable for high school students. On top of that, I think the trip also gives us a chance to make some difference. As a high school student, I studied in school every day, but I was always wondering about why I'm learning this, what I'm learning about, and could I really apply what I learned in school to real life, or how could I do that? An experiential learning trip provides such an opportunity for me to make a difference as a real part of the world. It is telling me that every single simple person can make their own contribution to the world. It has nothing to do with your age or your past experience. is just about if we want to make a difference or not. Getting to realize this, I discovered my interests in personal pursuit as well. I hope to bring the gap closer through my continuous efforts in providing supports for refugees. Though it's complicated and difficult, and I know it's not just for me. Many students explore their real interest from their unique experience in experiential learning trip and are determined to make their own difference, to make the world a better place.
Hi, I'm Dong Yixuan from the affiliated high school of Peking University. I'm an English tutor in the refugee tutoring program. The tutoring program derives from class about the refugee crisis in the Middle East. It aims to prepare refugee students for the Tawjihi exam, or the Jordanian equivalent of Chinese Gaokao. The exam is the only way refugees could go to college and change their economically deprived situation if they score a high mark. The program recruits tutors from the affiliated high school of Peking University. Each tutor will be assigned a refugee partner in Jordan to meet once a week. Each will choose a subject, either English or math, to teach their refugee partner through online video conferences. The conference lasts for 1.5 hours each time and for a total of 12 weeks. The weekly communication could be disrupted due to refugees' constantly precarious status. Refugees who participate till the end will be rewarded the exam fee required to attend Tawjihi. Many refugees are confined within refugee camps. They are socially marginalized and forgotten by the rest of the world. The program also provides humanitarian care to refugees by connecting them to the outside world. Those who do not feel like studying will find a partner to simply talk to every week. There are now around 50 students who take part in the program. We are the only school and community in Beijing that organizationally helps refugees. Jordan was my first experience with the Middle East. I engaged closely with the refugees in Jordan, NGOs, Jordanian Higher Population Council or the Jordanian government, United Nations officials, and the Economic Development Zone. Syrian and Palestinian refugees compose a third of Jordan's population. The government does not want them. The UN operates within the state to help it deal with the refugees, but it has many restrictions. The fact that the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, or UNHCR, defines only the registered ones as refugees is outrageous. The choices the refugees have are minimal. Either register themselves as refugees and not get enough supplies for the whole family, or choose not to register and work illegally. I visited UNHCR's largest refugee registration center in Amman. The atmosphere in the registration camp was depressing. The holding area was crowded. People all looked anxious and miserable. I visited Zatri, the largest Syrian refugee camp in the world. It's desolated in the middle of nowhere, kilometers away from the urban city. The refugees are confined within the camp with heavy security at the gates. I visited an economic development zone created by the European Union. The employers in the economic zones always exploit their workers. The workers receive less than the minimum wage and sometimes nothing. More than half of the refugees are not registered with UNHCR and only subsist through the informal economy. As a result, almost all workers I encountered in restaurants, hotels, and shops on the streets are refugees who work informally without a legal status. The refugees face tremendous difficulties and suffer unimaginable miseries. But almost every refugee I was in contact with was optimistic. The people I talked to in a refugee service center in Amman came from different countries with constant unrest: Iraq, Syria, Sudan, Yemen, and Somalia. One had serious post-war trauma with troubles articulating and self-expression. One had lost his father and witnessed his death while fleeing from the battlefield. One was the only male to support the family with 7 girls and a single mother. Many were not going to school. Most of them were our peers from 15 to 25 years old. Their tremendous suffering was unimaginable. We chatted, hung out together, laughed, and had normal interactions like ordinary people. I realized that they were no different than us, teens who like to have fun, talk to people, and go to school. The only difference was that we were the privileged ones, while they were the marginalized, deprived, and stigmatized. A Jordanian student from a marginalized community in Mafraq was awarded a full scholarship to our school at the end of the trip. He now became our classmates and friends. It was the limited help we could offer to one person from the massively impoverished and disenfranchised population in Jordan. The ongoing COVID pandemic crisis prevents us from admitting more refugee students from Jordan. But we continue to contribute to those in need by starting the tutoring program. We could reach out to more refugees through the internet than we could ever imagine, but our efforts remain limited.
Hello, I'm Gary Menacucci, a teacher at the Dalton Academy of the affiliated high school of Peking University. For the past 5 years, I've taught seminar courses on refugee studies and led student trips and faculty trips to Jordan to meet with refugee students, visit secondary schools, both inside and outside the camps, and to expose students in person to the views of the United Nations, Jordanian, and Chinese government officials regarding the refugee crisis in the Middle East. Out of this project, our students and faculty have initiated a scholarship program for refugees and students from marginalized communities in Jordan to finish high school in Beijing. Now, in the COVID-19 era of online learning, our students have organized a tutoring program for refugee students preparing for the annual Jordanian State College entrance examination, the only opportunity that any refugee student will ever have to get into college with a full scholarship if they score high enough on the exam. Our efforts will not substantially address educational inequality for refugees in Jordan. Neither will our online tutoring program serve as a substitute model for high-quality in-person classroom instruction that every student and educator in the world craves. The COVID-19 pandemic has taught all of us the very meager learning outcomes achieved through online classes. There are currently 83 million forcibly displaced persons in the world, of which only 26 million are officially registered with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. In Jordan, there are 1.5 million Syrian refugees, of which only 650,000, or less than a half, are registered with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. 2.2 million Palestinians in Jordan are registered as refugees with the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. In my refugee studies class, we are reading a book by Julie Petit, an anthropologist, who describes the foundational concept of refugee administration beginning in the 1950s. She wrote that refugee administrators thought that by learning new skills and becoming gainfully employed, the refugee could be rehabilitated and thus take on a new lifestyle and persona. Acceptance of displacement and renationalization was assumed to follow. The ultimate value of our scholarship and tutoring programs is to foster a deep critical understanding among our students and the refugee students they interact with of the limitations of the current refugee aid assistance regimes that have utterly failed to stop the burgeoning tide of refugee and forced migration. Learning new low-level vocational skills does not provide refugee students with access to higher education in host countries that will potentially elevate their family's economic status to get them out of living for generations in refugee camps. Refugees universally reject their displacement and will never adjust to it. Our scholarship and tutoring programs provide a select number of refugee students with the opportunity to reach a high academic level so that they can be the educated vocal advocates for themselves and also the millions of refugees whose voices have been suppressed. This is not nothing. It is lighting a small fuse. We are also piquing our Chinese students' responsibility as a privileged, educated elite to use their education ethically for public service to make the world a better place for everyone. True refugee relief will only come with world governments politically committing to the rule of international law and global redistribution of economic resources for development that serve as mechanisms for resolving internal civil conflicts within nations, violent conflicts between nations, and other causes of forced migration, such as climate change and poverty.
PBL is really this exceptional opportunity for students and for faculty, for people around the world to come together, to improve these things that challenge us so that we can figure out ways that we're cleaning the air, we're cleaning the water, we're fighting injustice, and we're figuring out how we can support those most in need. And I hope that you, within your organizations, big or small, look to see how you can contribute to this larger project with many smaller projects in it. I think most schools look at PBL as something that's overwhelming, and perhaps they dedicate or allocate a period or a time in the semester or a year where students can work on projects. And what I'm urging to you is to rethink this approach. And this means that people from the administration, the people who are non-teaching staff, faculty, parents, alumni, people in your greater network need to be involved so that we can have access to resources and exceptional ideas, exceptional people that will then allow for these ideas and projects to be realized, to live, to grow, to flourish, so that we can really ultimately see what we're capable of. And for other people to see the benefit, for other people to realize that benefit. Be creative. Look beyond your calendar in the academic day, in the evenings, in the weekends. Look how you can make your schedule more loose, more flexible, and who are those outside people that you should be including into your school. And I urge other schools to be figuring out ways, opportunities for people outside of the school, outside of education, to contribute to this educational reform and other reforms that can take many different shapes. Again, thank you for your time, and I'm very, very honored to be a part of this wonderful PBL project and initiative. Thank you.